So it's going on right here in town.
Well, my kids probably know about it. Even
So
though I
kids
don't.
probably know about it. But anyway, you can go and look on RPI's website, look up for the solar facade for building, you'll see it. But anyway, long story short, so some of that money does come, but
But how many jobs has that created?
well, probably this job, to be quite frank, if we've got involved with a large manufacturer, this thing, it could create 100 jobs.
No, I mean, how many did it create for you?
Right now?
Yeah.
It
I mean,
created-
besides your prior employees, how many employees did you hire for this green job?
Well, I would say that we probably added a couple employees to work on
That's
that.
what I mean. I
But
mean,
two
I'm not
employees-
trying to be a wise guy either, but how many, 2 jobs?
So
For all the
how would
money
you
that
like
was
to lay
spent?
off 2 people, so there's 2 more people that are on unemployment?
I'm not talking
So
about
we
that,
hired
just-
2 people, so I mean,
Yeah.
you know, every job is important. We
Of course.
employ 90 people, our payroll is almost $6 million
Yeah,
a
but before
year.
you had the green jobs, you had 89 people,
Yeah,
right?
right.
80 So what did it give you? How much
Gave me an
money?
employee. I mean, is that bad?
So, I mean,
I
you're
don't
making
know.
it sound like you created a lot of green jobs.
Not
I'm
now, but
I'm not breaking your chops either, believe
No,
me.
I appreciate that, but over a period of time, this could create hundreds of jobs, maybe thousands of
How long?
jobs.
How long? 20 years? I'm not gonna
5?
live 20. My son's who got laid off, he's not gonna live,
5.
no.
Give us 5 years.
You made your point, let's go on.
Yeah, okay, so anyway, long story short, I want to thank you for voting against the bill.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to do that is because as an employer, I struggle with healthcare costs every day. We just had a meeting with MVP. They want to raise our rates 23% this year. All right, we've provided healthcare insurance for our employees since the day this company started, in 21 years. This is out of control, we all know that. But just throwing money at the problem is not going to solve it. It has to be addressed from every level. I worked for Mallinckrodt in the research and development for 8.5 years before I started this business, so I know something about the medical device manufacturers. I know about what they got to go through for protocol and all that type of stuff to get a product out there. We need to look at every aspect of this, and to just throw a bill out there and say, we're going to throw money at this problem and solve it, is not going to solve the problem. And it really has to start at the consumer end, if you ask me. Where are these dollars being spent, and how can that be lessened? Once you do that, then the costs are going to drop on everything. They're going to drop, I mean, every insurance company experience rates their product. Your life insurance companies, so everybody's got life insurance, it's experience rated. You're 80 years old, you try to buy $1 million policy, I'm going to tell you it's going to cost a lot more than a 20-year-old in this room. And healthcare is the same way too. So a group has a policy, and we had one huge outlay. We had one individual who had a catastrophic illness in their family, and it was unbelievable, the cost. And it took our policy up. Actually, Blue Cross refused to issue us a policy the next year, and they had to go to MVP because they said we just can't, there's no way we'll ever recoup this loss. So the bottom line is there has to be a control at the consumer level, and then it has to kind of filter up through the whole system. That's my opinion. And I think any bill that's put in place has to put in, you know, there's a thing that just came up the other day that everybody's upset about, this breast cancer screening. Well, it's a huge cost. Is it really necessary? I mean, there's a lot of women that have been saved with this, but what's the actual cost to everybody? So the bottom line is, there has to be some kind of controls on this, and that's my opinion. But I do appreciate the job that you did voting against this. I think it was the right thing to do. I believe the right bill will come along. We all need it. I'm not against healthcare reform, don't get me wrong, but I'm not for just throwing taxpayer dollars at it. Because every company in this country that employs people will be paying that bill. And the people who are not working will be the ones who will be beneficiaries of it. And, you know, we have an awful burden on us right now. So like this gentleman said, we hired one person. Well, what if I laid off 2 people? May not mean much to you, but I'll bet you the 2 people I lay off are going to be pretty unhappy tomorrow when they don't have a paycheck coming in every Friday. So that's really important, that we create jobs with this bill, not take them away. And I think that that's really important. And thank you.
Yep. So actually somebody made a comment, and I think this is important. This is very important as we think about this. I think this breast cancer screening recommendation that came out from this panel of experts, really important to understand, at least as I read this and looked through it in some detail because it's stuff we're talking about right now. What they said was unrelated to cost. It wasn't related to cost. They said, are women's health outcomes better off getting screened more often or not? Because the screening involves some radiation and some other, and just being in a hospital which exposes you to germs and infections and everything else. And what they said was it's a close call, but they thought people were less healthy if they went in and got extra tests than if they didn't. That's what the data said. That this was just a bunch of scientists. They weren't insurance companies or anybody else that was paying the bills, and they weren't saying which costs more. They said it's very close, but that they overall, this is how I at least read this study, and maybe somebody that knows better than I, but I did spend a little time reading this. What they said was that people were better off not going in for the extra test until they were a little older, and then go in every other year instead of every year. And it wasn't related to actual cost. That was a separate question. This was just, are you going to be better off or not? Because obviously every time you get stuck with a needle or anything else, or you go in for a test, you run the risk of getting sicker. And they also said a lot of them were false positives, and then people go in for biopsies and other things that cause stress and potentially lead to other errors or get you sick by being in the hospital. So that was what that was. And I think that's the right kind of research, should be what is the best health outcome independent of the cost stuff, and that's what we're talking about in some of this reform doing. So I know that point raised some hands here, but he also had his hand up before, so I'll circle back. And how are we doing on time? A couple more questions. I'm sorry, because we have another one of these scheduled with people sitting there, so I hate to leave one group, but I also hate to leave other groups feeling like
Okay, my name is Craig Waldvogel. I'm a veteran, I'm retired, and I was a civil servant, so I covered a big three. And if anybody wants to know, thank you. If anybody wants to know how medical coverage will be when the government fully runs it, go into the Veterans Administration. I mean, it's a disgrace the way we treat our veterans. The hospitals are big stuff. Okay, so I mean, if you really want to see it,
you can get in there in Trenton and all
I try to avoid going down there.
Okay.
Okay. And the other thing is, what I'd like to see, we need medical coverage. I think it's a good idea, something to come out of it. But why can't we, let's fix Medicare and Social Security first. They're both headed off a cliff, and it's almost like, you know, it's going broke, but it's going to go broke 20 years from now. Let's not look at that. Let's the here and the now. And I just think we're piling on more and more expense. We're not getting any return for it in the end. And somebody somewhere is going to be stuck with, somebody's going to turn the lights out, and that guy's going to have to pay the check. And the check is coming quicker and quicker now. So, I mean, Medicare's running broke, and so is Social Security. Let's fix them first.
Well, and that's why my focus has really been on how do we, what they call bend the cost curve, slow that growth in cost in health insurance, because not only does it relate to people who don't have care now, it relates to everybody that does, whether they're through Medicare or through private insurance. And if we even just slow the growth on Medicare costs every year by being smart and fixing the system, not by denying people coverage. I have 3 grandparents alive still, all of whom get their care through either the VA, my grandfather through the VA, and my grandmother's through Medicare. And I absolutely want them to have good coverage, but that doesn't mean we can't slow the fact that, you know, people right here cost 1/3 what they cost in Miami, because people just get tons and tons of extra tests in Miami, but they're not healthier. Our Medicare patients in Miami are not healthier than the Medicare patients here. It's just the system there is broken. Those are things we can fix that will help solve our cost issues, and this is the time to do that, in my opinion.
My name is Pat Miller, and I'm from Jackson.
Hi, Pat. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you for being here. I would like to know if it was ever discussed seriously to overhaul Medicare and Medicaid instead of spending trillions of dollars on a new health plan.
So I think most people that are pretty into the health thing would say there's a meaningful amount of fixes to Medicare that we're talking about in these bills, to change some things called accountable care organizations and some other ways to make Medicare work better. So I think that most people would say there is a pretty good overhaul of Medicare going on as part of this.
Going on? I can't see.
In the legislation we're looking at.
Right.
If you read through those 2,000 pages, a good 1,000 page of it is about making Medicare work better.
Right.
So that is part.